Hi, folks. This is the Fighting Nerd and his co-host Jolly Roger. Not filming ourselves today, so you're going to take our word that we're us and we're here. Tonight we're going to talk about movies, particularly bad movies. Movies that are so bad, they're good. Their very badness gives them their own charm. And you know what? You all know these movies. You all have movies that you watch like this. The guilty pleasures. The movies that you like but you don't want to admit to your family you like, and you watch them with your best buddies. Right? The train wreck movies that are so horrible you can't stop watching. And then you realize that by all objective standards, these are horrible movies. But you like them. And you even watch them again. Right? So I call them S-Big movies. S-B-I-G. So bad, it's good. I, I have selected 10, or a couple of them are actually in categories. But the truth is, there are some movies that are to be enjoyed for their badness. They are great in their mediocrity. And here we go. The first is Hawk the Slayer. This is kind of a fantasy version of the Magnificent Seven. It features Jack Palance yelling almost every line for no apparent reason. Some fairly inventive but cheap sets, and some of the worst fight choreography I think has ever been done, particularly when it comes to the sword work. But the movie is still kind of cool. It's got great mood. It's got a lot of humor in it. It's got some pretty interesting, if not derivative, characters. And it's entertaining. Now, critics and people who have gone to film school could rail about how bad this movie is forever. But you know what? I still like it. I credit this movie with really starting me to play D&D back in the day. Uh, it's just one of those things that you see late at night or on one of those hosted shows for kids in the morning that have movies, and it's just great fun. Then we have The Giant Claw. This is pretty representative of the B monster movies in the 50s, but this is one of the better S-Big monster movies from the 50s. It is about a giant bird from another dimension that destroys a lot of toy planes and scares a lot of people on the ground. There's a lot of those running and pointing scenes. And is finally defeated by a brilliant maverick scientist and his antimatter cannon, which, interestingly enough, is mounted on the back of a B-25 bomber. A lot of really bad special effects. The creature itself is horrible. The creature's supposedly terrifying squawk sounds kind of like a damaged bicycle horn, but the movie is still pretty good. I've seen it many times. Now, this is Cyber Ninja. That's what it was called in the United States. And despite reading the synopsis on IMDb, I defy anyone to actually tell someone what this movie is about. It's just a whole bunch of pretty cool sequences, like pagoda houses that have been turned into battle mechs on mechanical legs, and this thing called a spirit sword, which they don't really explain. But you can kind of watch this movie, and one of the joys is trying to figure out exactly what the movie's about and what is the story trying to do. And it's glorious in its confusion. And of course, there's a whole lot of Japanese characters that they don't translate, so you can't read them and you don't know what's going on. And there is Nick Fury and his Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, this is Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., not to be confused with the horrible TV show that's going on right now, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., starring the great-ish David Hasselhoff. This is after he got off of Baywatch. Again, it's an S-Big movie. I mean, it's kind of silly. The acting isn't particularly fantastic. but it's got a lot of really cool comic book Easter eggs in it. And Hasselhoff, being Hasselhoff, does a fairly decent job with the Nick Fury character. You have Lisa Rinna in, I think, skin-tight leather, and this was before she mutilated herself with plastic surgery. You know, it's an over-the-top comic book movie, but again, it's very entertaining, and it is. I still think it's better than the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show that's on now. Worth looking into. Ah, yes, Ninja 3 to Domination. Now, all of these 80s ninja movies qualify as SBIGs, but this is the best of the bunch. It has every ninja myth and every ninja cliche that you can think of, and it's all squeezed into a little under 90 minutes, I believe. And it also takes The Exorcist in undertow and makes an evil ninja possess the body of a super hot chick who who wreaks mayhem and carnage all over Los Angeles until the evil ninja is exorcised from her body by the great Sho Kosugi at the old temple on the hill, which everybody seems to know where the old temple on the hill is in this movie, and they don't never even ask which old temple on the hill. I assume there would be more than one. And then we have Kill and Kill Again. This is pretty much a standard martial arts 80s fare from South Africa starring James Ryan, where a group of elite martial artists take on a cult full of, mysteriously, elite martial artists and wind up in an arena fighting a succession of martial arts styles and personalities. Atrocious acting, derivative plot, fairly decent martial arts choreography, but every single misconception and cliche about the martial arts that you could possibly have is in this movie. But the thing I remember most about this movie is at the end, when one of the villain's henchmen shoots the main character, or shoots at the main character with a revolver, and the entire round of ammunition, shell casing and all, comes out of the gun and is deflected by this iron dooflicky to save the main character's life. Now, not only does the entire shell casing, brass and all, come out of the gun, which is a huge technical mistake, but this is a huge technical mistake made in slow motion so you could enjoy it. A great martial art brain-dead movie. Then we have Red Sonja with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bridget Nielsen. The standout in this movie is Ernie Reyes Jr. He was young back then, and he was just funny as hell in this movie. But other than that, that's really the only good thing you can say about this movie. Except Arnold has some pretty good one-liners. But pretty much a horrible movie. But again, with the one-liners and Ernie Reyes and this other guy that runs around there hitting people with a great big bone. Just one of those things that you can just turn your brain off and watch and laugh at. And it's funnier than most comedies that they make these days. And this is kind of a general category of movies. This is every Godzilla or Japanese monster movie made in the 70s. These were glorious. You know, people in rubber suits stomping on toy tanks and cannons and swatting toy planes out of the air. This was just great stuff. This particular clip is from Godzilla vs. Megalon, which in my personal opinion is the best of the 70s Godzilla movies. Godzilla knows Kung Fu, does this great little tail-dragging drop kick. Great stuff. Fantastic nostalgia for guys my age. But there's one of these things where you can't. It has a story kind of that you just turn your brain off and enjoy. When you were kids, when you were a little kid, it was cool. When you're an adult, it's hilarious. And then we have a Canadian film, Starship Invasions, which believe it or not, starred Christopher Lee. Well, this is a story about an alien invasion, standard fare, the planet's dying, they need ours, and they're going to kill us all off and take the planet. But it has taken all the actual UFO research, if you want to call ufology research, but all the different UFO stories and all the different theories that all the UFO buffs have, and they put it into a nice, tight little story. Now, that's the thing. This story is actually pretty good. It goes S big because the acting sometimes isn't really so good. The special effects are abominable. But you can get by all of that because it's got a couple of good-looking chicks in it. It's got this really freaky scene where Christopher Lee has like telepathic mind sex with this hot redhead. And there's this farmer guy that gets abducted by a UFO and is forced to have sex with this really hot chick. And it's just one of those things that you take suspension of disbelief and you turn it into high gear and you let go. Now this one, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. This barely qualifies as X-Big because it might just because it's that bad. But I put it on here because it is kind of funny if you don't think about it too much. Now, I'm a history buff, and I am very fond of the Vikings. This movie would make most historians' eyes bleed profusely. The Vikings all have horns on their helmets. The swords aren't Viking, and they look like toys. The armor is all wrong. It's just horrible. The plot is about Vikings that find North America before anybody else, and they have to fight Native Americans, which are also portrayed in a hopelessly cliche fashion. But if you can turn the historian in your brain down, you can find this movie is hilarious. Now, Lee Majors was pretty hot back in the 70s. Why he made this piece of garbage, I don't know. But it is hilarious. Well, there you have it, folks. My picks for the S-Big movies of all time. There are many more. So, but check these out. And if you take them as S-Bigs, and if you embrace the badness, and you find elegance in the badness, you'll enjoy these movies. That's all I have tonight. I bid you once again to remember that words make history. And I bid you good night. And I hope you have fun with these movies.